From the early days on attending school at Oswin Avenue, sport was always big in my life. I made the school football team. We also played rugby league. That was introduced. So I managed to make the team for the rugby league as well. And I played for Yorkshire at that time, and we used to regularly play as the curtain raiser to the professional teams around the Yorkshire area. And straight after the game, they always gave you a money box, and you'd have to go into the crowd and rattle up the old box and try and get some donations for us to continue. But that's the way we raise some funds to continue with our sporting life. From that, other sports were developed, and the one which became a big part of my life was basketball. That was introduced by Derek Holmes at that time, who was the PE teacher, and I and quite a lot of us had a very good relationship with him. In fact, he introduced boxing. I've got a photograph of where we're posing for boxing, and we didn't have any ropes. We were in the school hall, and it was the four sides of the ring was made up of school forms, and there's a couple of us in the middle there pretending to be fighting, and we'd have Derek Holmes and three other teachers sat at the four positions where the ropes would be, scoring as it were, and organising it from that point of view. So it was good. I mean, boxing wasn't my scene, but I got roped in because, I don't know, I seen I and my friends because we're more interested in sport in the school perhaps, we were always involved. The introduction of basketball at school was a big part of my life, because from that point onwards, basketball became the only sport I was interested in. But in the beginning, before all this basketball, I went on after leaving school to playing not only junior rugby, but senior rugby, until it frightened me to death. I broke my collarbone and one or two other bits and pieces. I thought, well, basketball was a bit rough on occasions, but not less rough, so I turned my attention towards being more interested in basketball, and it's been good to me. As a result, I've seen a very big part of the world. I've travelled worldwide and played worldwide, or been involved worldwide. It's at the Olympic level, at the Commonwealth Games level, and at the national teams. So it's been good to me throughout. The way basketball came around or about at Oswin Avenue School is simply because Derek Holmes, who was a PE teacher, knew out of college, I presume, was enthusiastic himself about the sport, and got it going. And I was in the third or fourth year at school, and as a result, we were the tallest people in school. And at that time, of course, height meant a great deal, as it does today. But you need to be athletic and coordinated, and along with many other accoutrements that is needed in the sport as it is today. But as Derek got us more and more involved in basketball, we were very much interested then in playing against other teams to test our skill and so forth. And there was no school league teams or anything of that nature at the time. We had to develop, and we managed to get a Doncaster League off the ground, which was interesting. That spread to the Yorkshire level. Once we got better and needed to test our skills even further, we moved through to Yorkshire level. And once we had gone past Yorkshire level, we used to be travelling even further afield to play games, just to find teams better than ourselves, so that we could learn from them and have a go at them, as it were. But in the very early days, when Derek introduced us to the sport, I don't know how it came about, but the vests that we were given to wear, or that we wore at that time, were black with white numbering, white lettering, and we simply called ourselves the Panthers, and it became the Black Panthers, and the Panthers have stuck ever since. But we developed in that manner through the kit, and the name came along as the Panthers. But because we started playing further afield, and we were also obtaining press, and the people that were involved with the press always wanted to know where we came from, where our base was, and where we played out of. Because, well, first we were always the Black Panthers of Doncaster, until in those early days the Americans were still over here, an offshoot from the days of World War, and they were still based at Finningley and Lindholm. Lindholm was, I think, the lead base. Finningley was more of a fighter base, where Lindholm, I think, was in control of a number of the bases around the area. But they were the nearest two. And Derek Holmes, in the early days, managed to get Lindholm to come and put a demonstration on for us in the gym at Bowlby. The look on their faces when they walked in and saw the size of the place. They were used to, obviously, places much larger, where the game was played properly. But we managed to hang on the wall bars and managed to watch the game and see how it developed and was played, and it was great. But as a progression from that, a little later, Lindholm started to organise a league to be placed on the original airport at Doncaster, where the dome is now, where the Doncaster Rovers used to be, or still are, I think, I don't know. But in that area where the dome is now, there were some hangars. There were LEP transport hangars, I always remember that. And they converted them into basketball facilities to have changing rooms from the Nisnots, and to play in one of the hangars there. The only drawback from it, we had to play on a concrete floor. It was great, it was a good flat surface, but you didn't want to fall too often. But it was developed well, and we used to play there. Well, I think one or two seasons, that was all, before the Americans had to break it all up, and not so much break it up, but they had to leave because it was their home time, as it were, and left us to it, dictators. The Americans started referring to us as Doncaster Panthers, and instead of saying the Panthers of Doncaster. We're still in the black vests, but they nicknamed us the Doncaster Panthers, and that name stuck, and that's what we became known as. But the early days we were the Panthers, just the Panthers. But from that point we then went on to get as many games as we could on further afield to play against better opposition. We always had to play. We managed to, of that competition in the hangars, we won the English contingent side of it, but not the Americans. They were played in their own right and knew what they were showing us how to play. In fact, whilst we were here, we played a game in the Corn Exchange, and the Corn Exchange, for those that know it, it's hard to believe, because it wasn't a big place, but it had tiered seating in those days, where it was like at an opera. You had boxes which were up the wall side, and they had a stage at one end, and we fastened a basket. We got a basket developed so it stood on the staging, and the other one was freestanding at the other end, and we played such as RAF Bomber Command. They came across and played us on occasion. The Americans and men were still at Harrogate. They came down and played against us. The secondary school at Bowlby played a major part in our development as a basketball team. As such, wherever we went in those days, we were always, as I've said, now called the Doncaster Panthers. But invariably, quite often, we have to then expand on that, and we'd be known then as the Doncaster Panthers of Doncaster, representing the Bowlby Youth Club. And it's the youth club team that in the earlier days really took off, got the team to take off and want for better things, because is in the gymnasium where we always associated ourselves, because there was nowhere else we could go and play basketball, but we were limited to the size of the school gymnasium in those days. And at that period of time when schools were built and gymnasiums were built and attached, they were all of a standard shape and size, and they were classified as being 70 by 40 feet, which meant whenever we played in there, that's the size gym or basketball court we could play in, even if you played to the walls and made those the lines, just to get yourself that extra foot either side. We've always thought made a big difference. So Bowlby Youth Club, well, as we finished up playing under, Derek Holmes was the leader. He seemed to be involved in everything I'm involved in, but he was very much involved there, and got us permission when we left school to use the gymnasium a couple of nights a week for basketball. And I became qualified as a basketball coach, which gave me leader classification, which meant we could use the gymnasium without having adult supervision, which made a big difference. So 2 or 3 of us got being involved and either became referees or became coaches. I got coaching qualification. It did me good, because I continued and went further with it and finished up as far as I could go with it. As the game developed along the lines that we were operating at Bowlby, opportunities came for us to try and move on to do things at a much higher level. We were stuck with the size gymnasium that I mentioned earlier, 70 by 40. Anything larger than that, we thought was beautiful. And it wasn't until schools started building not gymnasia but sports halls attached to schools that people such as ourselves got this opportunity. Intake got a sports hall. Rosendon got a sports hall. Can't think of too many others, but we got the opportunity of being able to use Rosendon High School's facilities on a regular basis, and this was good to us. The only drawback was, like the Americans on the concrete floor, this is Rosendon and the asphalt floor. It still hurt. But nevertheless, we got a full-size court and we were able to put on some better quality games. In fact, one opportunity came along. There was a team from Czechoslovakia touring the UK, and we got the opportunity of arranging to have a game with them, but we couldn't play a ball bit because the court was too small. So we tried to set it up for Rosendon, and Rosendon couldn't accommodate us on this occasion. We finished up, and all this is happening whilst the team is unaware of this. The Czech team, they were just saying we're going to play at Doncaster. And when they finally arrived, we'd had to arrange a bus to bus them to Leeds University. And we played the game at Leeds University under international rules, which we have to do. So that's why it had to be a full-size court. We had to play with international referees and so on. So that was one occasion when we were helped out in that direction. In fact, many of the other times we had the opportunity of bettering ourselves and playing. It had to be away from Balby, unfortunately, simply because of the facilities. But because of the facilities we had, we couldn't play at home, as it were. We used to have to play away, and we often used to get the cars out, off we go on a weekend and drive up to Scotland or drive down the London way just to get the better games. Also, we were looking to always better ourselves, always look forward to playing better teams, which gave us more experience and therefore opportunities to learn and become better coaches, players, whatever it may be. This is the route that I took down as in the sense of being one of the management of these teams, either as coach, assistant coach, manager, assistant manager. And I started off being the manager of the England junior team, and held this position for I think 8 years with the national team. My appointments kept being made longer, and then I moved on to managing with the England team. So this was a different proposition. I was nothing to do technically about the game. It was all about organising the team. So you'd have a coach there who would coach the team and probably an assistant. If I was the manager, would probably have an assistant manager. If it was one of the bigger teams, we're talking about England or Great Britain. I started off at junior level, so I was the England junior team coach for a number of years, as I've said. And then I moved on, I became the assistant coach to the England team, which we went to the Germany games, the Munich games, which was where all the trouble was, and we were there trying to qualify. In those days, there'd be, depending on the rules as it stood, so many countries were automatically had the right to play in the Olympic Games. Others had to qualify, and we were one of the others. So to help these out, they used to put a tournament together the week before the Olympic Games started. And there was always a couple of places left in the Olympic Games to accommodate the winners of such tournaments. This went off in the same way in other countries, but this was the way we tackled it. And we played in our tournament on this particular occasion in Germany for the Munich Games at the place I can't recall at the moment, on the outskirts of Germany, and we didn't qualify, but we had the opportunity of playing under Olympic Games conditions. Everything was exactly the same. It's just that we were trying to qualify when others had already qualified and got there. So we didn't quite make it, but in our mind, we've been to the Olympic Games, although it wasn't the Olympic Games proper as perhaps anyone else had known. And this went on for a number of years, and I played the role of being the assistant coach or the assistant manager on different occasions, depending which position I'd put in for at that time, until finally at England level it wasn't a real problem, because we had the same managers and assistant managers as well as the coaches, and these were, you were straight in, and I played the role of being the assistant coach on many occasions, as well as the assistant manager and manager, more times the manager. So that was good experience for me. Certainly helped for me getting organised and knowing what was necessary to be up there at the top, so that the Panthers as such very quickly got used to having that qualifications to look forward to, and quite a number of Doncaster players finished up playing for the England junior team. Many times they'd get there, and we'd be quite fortunate then in having their facilities to play in the national championships with a team which had got half of them being recognised as England international quality. So it was good. One of the other aspects of organisation that we managed to get in place was the organising of our own Christmas tournament, and this went on for a number of years as it happens, and it was always on these occasions organised. It was organised by ourselves, but it was sponsored by the South Yorkshire County Council. They purchased the tournament, which is this one over my shoulder, together with all the minor trophies and presentations which were meted out on this occasion, and it was a 3-day event. It ran from 1976 to 1984. Very good proportion. It was in 1984 that unfortunately not only did we have to close the tournament down, but we had to close the club down. The team had to finish at that particular date. In fact, the very first winners of the tournament was the British Olympic team. We invited them to, it was an Olympic year, And this was an opportunity in our way of giving them the opportunity of extra practice together by playing in our tournament. So it was good for us and more so for them. And all the other teams, as I say, were mainly foreign teams or very good Scottish or Irish teams. Very good tournament. We were sad to see then it come to an end. The Panthers, unfortunately, had to close the operation down with the 1984-85 season being the last one we had. We had to, at that stage, we were virtually a semi-professional team, and we had full-time officers in the and staff in the town centre in Doncaster. We ran one of the big lotteries that were all the go in those days, with the three lottery cars in operation. So that was generating finance for us. But unfortunately, we didn't have sufficient, and we had to make the sad decision of having to close the operation down. An operation, I mean, close the basketball club down. So at that point, it came to an end.